the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma Pochita Kaitravotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Parir Ishvara Sadyo Hridya Avarudyate Tra Kriti Bhi Sususubis Takshanat. Completely rejecting all material activities which are completely rejecting all spiritual activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient within itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam sukumakad amritam dravya samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhur aho raska bhuvi bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadev Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, verse number 10. We're not going to go over all of it, but there's just a few things. Well, 9, yeah. I'm sorry, yeah. That's where the other class is tonight. Yeah, we're going to go over 197 a little bit more. There's so much information there. So, there. Yeah, Vasistha Muni. He and Vishwamrita Muni got into a lot of controversial confrontations. And it is because Vishwamrita Muni previously was a Kshatriya. And Vasistha Muni had a Kamadhenu cow that could provide all types of opulence, any amount of opulence. And Vishwamrita Muni thought, why is this sadhu living in the forest, performing austerities? Why does he have this cow? I need the cow. I'm a king. I'm a Kshatriya. I need to have such opulence. So he tried to forcibly take the cow away. And when he did that, the cow manifested many soldiers and defeated him and his army. And he was shocked. And then he realized that the Brahma Tejas, the power of a genuine Brahmana, is much greater than the Kshatriya Tejas, or the power of Kshatriyas. So then, during, actually no, the cow, I'm mixing up two stories. I'm mixing up the story of Janma Dagni. He first of all, the cow manifested tremendous amount of food, opulent food, for Vishwamrita and his soldiers, and he was impressed by it. And he wanted the cow, but he tried to take the cow, but the cow did not want to go with him. So he kills 100 sons of Vasistha. But Vasistha tolerated it. It didn't get upset. And then later on, Vishwamrita Muni realized that, the power of a Brahmana is much greater than the power of the Kshatriyas. So then he began to perform great austerities to become a Brahmana. So he tried his best, but he fell down once, and then he had to start all over again. But eventually he became a Muni, or a great sage. And at a certain point, Vasistha Muni was the guru of Harishchandra, who was another great king. But Harishchandra had a son who was destined to die. And Harishchandra asked his guru, Vasistha, is there anything you could do to save the boy's life? And he said, well, there's one thing. If you can get the son of somebody else, then we can offer that boy up as a sacrifice, and that can save your son. So he looks around in his kingdom, and he finds a poor Brahmana who has several sons, and he basically bribes him to be gifted one of his sons, and the Brahmana accepts the bribe, takes it, and he gives him a son. So then they begin a whole process of how to sacrifice the boy. Now, when Vasistha Muni hears about this, and he has this rivalry with Vishwamrita Muni hears about this. He has this rivalry with Vasistha. So he comes, and he has a private, let's say, conversation with the boy, and he teaches him a mantra, that if he says this mantra when he's put into the fire, he'll not die. So they prepare the boy for the fire sacrifice. They bathe him, and they do different things. And then he's placed into the fire, and he says the mantra, and after a certain period of time, they realize that there's something strange going on. The boy's not burning at all. And then they take him out of the fire, and he's perfectly alive and hasn't even been singed by the fire. So now they have a problem, because they realize that this boy has some kind of magical power or something, and they're trying to figure out who is his father. So they have a discussion, and they say, well, he has a birth father, the Brahmana. But then they say, well, wait a minute, the Brahmana sold him to Harishchandra, so what kind of father was he? And then they say, okay, then Harishchandra will have to take care of him. They said, well, wait a minute, he tried to kill the boy, put him in a fire. So then they say, well, we have to give him the Vishwamrita Muni, because he taught him the mantra by which he saved his life. So he's the real father. So that's an interesting story that shows how the guru who gives you a sacred mantra is actually your father. You have a birth father, of course, but the guru who gives you the sacred mantra is actually your spiritual father who will help you, overcome the cycle of birth and death, go back to Godhead. And then, Atri Muni is another interesting person. They're all interesting persons. They all have different stories, but Atri Muni is very interesting. He was a great Brahmana sage and was one of the mental sons of Brahmaji. Brahmaji is so powerful that simply by thinking of a son, he can have it. These sons are known as Manasaputras, or mentally born. Out of 7 Manasaputras of Brahmaji, these are the 7 great sages in the universe. They're different than the Mahajans, right? The 12 Mahajans. Manasaputras of Brahmaji, and out of the 7 great Brahmana sages, Atri was one. And so Atri Muni's wife was Anasuya, and she was a very chaste woman. But one day, a sage, when Atri Muni was away, a sage came, and he was very attracted to her, and he wanted to copulate with her. So Atri Muni comes back and realizes what happened. It wasn't Anasuya's fault, but the sage had the power to overpower her. And he gets so upset that he curses her to become a stone. And she becomes a stone. And her body is petrified, let's say, in the form of a stone. And then, but later on, if I'm not mistaken, Lord Ramachandra visits the ashram, and he relieves her of that curse. So, at one point, Atri Muni and Anasuya want to have God as their son. But because Atri Muni didn't actually know which of the Trimurtis is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he and his wife meditate on the Trimurtis, and they have 3 sons. One is an expansion of Lord Shiva, and I think one is an expansion of Brahma, and one is an expansion of Lord Vishnu. So there it's explained that when one is not sure who is God, then they don't know what the ultimate object of worship and meditation is. And this is the example of Atri Muni. Whereas Vasudeva and Devaki, they fully meditated on Lord Krishna to be their son. So, and then you have Devaki and Kardama Muni. They had Kapila Dev, who's an incarnation of Krishna, as their son. So this is what happens, like most Hindus, they think all the gods are equal. So they don't have a clear understanding who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. And even in ancient times, that confusion was there. Therefore, when there was a need to have God appear, because the demigods were being harassed seriously, and Narada Muni appeared when they were discussing, let's have a, Brahmaji and the demigods were discussing, let's have an incarnation of God to save us. Narada Muni arrived and said, well, before we want an incarnation of God, let's decide who is the supreme God. Is it Brahma, is it Shiva, or is it Vishnu? So they weren't sure. So they appointed Bhrigu Muni to visit Brahma, who was his father, Shiva, who was his brother, and Vishnu, who was his worshipable deity, Brahmins, real Brahmins only worship Lord Vishnu. Therefore, that eliminates a lot of Brahmanas today in India. They're worshiping Ganapati, or they're worshiping Shiva, or they're worshiping Devi. But Brahmins actually worship Lord Vishnu. So Bhrigu Muni was worshiping Lord Vishnu. His father is Brahma. His brother is Lord Shiva. So he goes to see Brahma. And when Brahma is so happy to see his son, he said, "Oh, my dear Bhrigu, I'm so happy to see you." And Bhrigu Muni doesn't say anything, doesn't offer any praise to his father. I don't think he gave obeisances either. No, he was respectful in that sense, but he was disrespectful in the sense that he didn't offer any praise, and he didn't answer his father, who said, "I'm so glad to see you. How are you?" So Brahma gets really upset, because this is an insult. Because whenever you go to see your elder or your spiritual master, you're supposed to bow down, and you're supposed to offer praise. And he didn't do that. So Brahma takes that as an insult, and he gets really upset. But then with his intelligence, he controls himself. But Bhrigu Muni sees that he got upset. So he said, Brahma cannot be the supreme God because he's influenced by the modes of material nature. Not to the point where he loses control of himself, but to the point where he actually did become angry. So he leaves Brahma and he goes to see his brother Shiva. And Shiva was so glad to see Bhrigu Muni. He says, "My dear brother, here, let me give you a hug, And Bhrigu Muni says, "Ugh, don't touch me." So you have the ashes of dead people on your body, and you have the snake around you, and you have a garland of skulls, and you have a snake. Don't touch me. And Shiva gets really angry. He takes his Trishul, is going to kill him. And Parvati stops him at the last second and says, "You can't kill your brother. This is not proper thing to do." And then Bhrigu Muni leaves right away. And then he realized Lord Shiva can't be the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he's influenced by the mode of passion, and ignorance. So now he goes to see Lord Vishnu, and he's able to go to Swetadvip and actually go to the island where the Lord is. And when he has darshan of the Lord is very pleased. He's reclining on Sheshanaga, and Lakshmi Devi is massaging his feet. And he says, "Oh, my dear Bhrigu Muni, I'm so happy to see you. You're such an exalted Brahmana." And he jumps up on his chest and bangs, it comes down hard on his chest with his 2 feet. And Lord Vishnu doesn't get upset, and he smiles and said, "Oh, Bhrigu Muni, I want to apologize to you. Your feet are so soft and my chest is so hard. I fear that I hurt you." And Bhrigu Muni is shocked. He can't believe his eyes and his ears. And he realizes, he feels very shameful, and he realizes that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not influenced at all by the modes of material nature. And he jumps off and he gives his obeisances and he apologizes. Well, Lakshmi Devi sees all of this, and she becomes extremely upset. Not exactly in the same way that ordinary people. She's upset because she did not stop him from stepping. Oh, by the way, the imprint of his feet are still on his chest. And his chest is where Lakshmi Devi reclines her head sometimes, and is always, very close to the Lord. And it's called the Srivatsa, the imprint of his feet on the chest of the Lord. And she becomes so basically devastated by what happened, and the fact that she was not able to stop it. And she realizes, or she feels as if she's a very sinful person because she let it happen and she witnessed it, and she leaves Lord Vishnu and begins a whole process of austerity for her so-called desolation and depression of not being able to stop it. So that leads into the whole history of the appearance of Balaji. But we won't go into that right now. But that pastime is there in the Bhagavatam. So there are many interesting pastimes with all these personalities. Those are just a few. Okay, so now we'll go on to text number 8. And many others, like Sukadeva Goswami and other purified souls, Kasyapa and Angirasa and others, all accompanied by their respective disciples, arrived there. So we see there's these transcendental personalities to witness the passing of Bhismadev, including Krishna himself and other persons accompanying him. So it says here, purport by Srila Prabhupada, Sukadeva Goswami, also known as Brahmarata, the famous son and disciple of Shri Vyasadeva, who taught him first the Mahabharata and then Srimad Bhagavatam. Sukadeva Goswami recited 1,400,000 verses of the Mahabharata in the councils of the Gandharvas, Yakshas, and Rakshasas, and he recited Srimad Bhagavatam for the first time in the presence of Maharaj Parikshit. He thoroughly studied all the Vedic literatures from his great father. Thus, he was a completely purified soul by dint of his extensive knowledge in the principles of religion. From Mahabharata, Sabha Parva 4.11, it is understood that he was also present in the royal assembly of Maharaj Yudhisthira and at the fasting of Maharaj Parikshit. As a bona fide disciple of Shri Vyasadeva, he inquired from his father very extensively about religious principles and spiritual values. And his great father also satisfied him by teaching him the yoga system by which one can attain the spiritual kingdom, the difference between fruitive work and empirical knowledge. So, empirical knowledge is what the scientists perform. Empirical knowledge means that knowledge that you can acquire with your blunt senses. And obviously that falls very short of understanding absolute truth. And the persons who are seeking elevation on the heavenly planets by performing rituals and so forth. So both things are materialistically motivated. As a bona fide disciple of Shri Vyasadeva, he inquired from his father very extensively about religious principles and spiritual values, and his great father also satisfied him by teaching him the yoga system by which one can attain the spiritual kingdom, the difference between fruitive work and empiric knowledge. So both karma and jnana and mystic yoga are impediments on the path back to Godhead, because they are only steps toward the goal, but not the goal itself. And if one gets stuck on a certain level, like karma yoga or jnana yoga or mystical yoga, then those are impediments rather than means of attaining the absolute truth. One must come to bhakti yoga to be able to go back to Godhead. And these other types of yoga or the other types of striving for spiritual elevation, without bhakti yoga, they're ineffective. And so the difference between fruitive work and empiric knowledge, the ways and means of attaining spiritualization, the four ashramas, namely the student life, the householder life, and retired life, and the renounced life, the sublime position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the process of seeing Him eye to eye, the bona fide candidate for receiving knowledge, the consideration of five elements, the unique position of intelligence, the consciousness of the material nature and the living entity, the symptoms of the self-realized soul, the working principles of the material body, the symptoms of the influential modes of nature, the tree of perpetual desire and psychic activities. So he teaches him all these things. Vyasadeva teaches all these things to Sukadeva Goswami. And this is all explained in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam in depth, and somewhat in the Mahabharata. Sometimes he went to the sun planet with the permission of his father and Naradaji. Descriptions of his travel in space are given in the Santi Parva of the Mahabharata 332 or 332. At last he attained the transcendental realm. He is known by different names like Araneya, Arunisutta, Vyasaki, and Vyasatmaja. Okay, so we'll stop right there and continue tomorrow on text number 8. Any questions? Okay, then we'll continue chanting Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.